Yep, good morning. So last session we discussed about how TypeScript is different from JavaScript and why we need TypeScript. What are the features of TypeScript? Because Angular needs TypeScript as a language. So we discussed about what are the TypeScript features. When compared to JavaScript, some important features are there. Already we discussed that. You remember them, right? What are the features of TypeScript? Okay, is it clear now? Audible? Yeah. Okay, let's continue. So, last session we discussed about TypeScript features. What is TypeScript and what are the features of TypeScript? Some key features what we discussed about TypeScript. TypeScript is strictly typed. TypeScript is strongly typed. TypeScript supports all features of OOPS. It supports low-level features. It supports low-level features which can directly interact with hardware. It is lightweight. It is faster. These are all the features. And we also learned how to set up and install TypeScript. So yesterday we discussed install Node.js. You done it, huh? You installed Node.js and installed TypeScript. These two are ready on your PCs. And you have one more. Visual Studio. Visual Studio Code is also. These all three need to be ready. You need to keep all these three ready. You have to install Node.js, TypeScript, and Visual Studio Code. Yesterday I showed you the process, right? How to set up, how to install the process I told you. Now today we will start practically learning about TypeScript. We will start learning detailedly about TypeScript. How to write programs, how do we compile, how do we run and use them. Actually, for this, one more important you should know. First, we will see today creating a new project. How to create a project for working with TypeScript. We will see how to create a new project. Let's see how do we create a new project so that we can start using TypeScript. So first step, what we have to do is open any location on your PC and create a new folder for project. Open any location on your PC and you create a new folder for project. So on your computer, you open any location, C drive, D drive, any location, and create a new folder for project. So let's see. We are opening the computer location. In this, I will go to some C, D, E drives, any location. I am choosing some E drive. Okay, in this, you create a new project. I am creating a new folder. In E drive, I am creating a new folder by name TypeScript app. I am creating a folder called TypeScript app. Any name you can give. Any name you can give. You can give any name. I am just giving the name as TypeScript app. Okay, that is empty folder. So I created a folder in my E drive. I created TypeScript app. That is the folder I created. You can create at any location. You can give any name for your project. After creating this, second step, you have to open project folder in Visual Studio Code. You have to open in Visual Studio Code. Already you installed Visual Studio Code. You have to open in Visual Studio Code, right? So you have to open the project in Visual Studio Code. The folder. So Visual Studio Code you installed. This is Visual Studio Code IDE. This is Visual Studio Code. Actually, Visual Studio Code initially looks like this. This is Visual Studio Code. In Visual Studio Code, open folder and select your project folder. Here you have to select project folder. Our project folder is in E drive, TypeScript app. So I will select in E drive, TypeScript app. That is the folder. I am opening that here. It's an empty folder. So we don't have anything inside this. It's an empty file, empty folder. Now after opening this folder, you are going to learn TypeScript here. Generally, we will learn only TypeScript here. Generally, what we can do is we can learn how to use TypeScript with HTML. That is not required for you because you are here to learn TypeScript for Angular. So first we will learn only TypeScript language. Then we will use this language in Angular. So we will not use any HTML or anything here. Simply, first what you have to do is in this project folder, you have to make this as a web application. You have to make this as a web application. How to make this as a web application? As per standards, every web application usually, for example, I will tell you one simple scenario. Suppose we have a project or you call it as app something. Now what you done is you downloaded a project from online. Suppose you are learning Java or .NET or some other technology. Now you want to practice some sample projects. Online, so many sample projects are present. You can go online, you can download any project designed by somebody and you can practice it. I hope you know that. You know, a popular website is there, codeproject.com. Code project is a very popular among developers. Software developers, many of the real world developers know this code project. Code project is a very popular free resource of projects. That means they will provide free projects here belonging to all technologies, including artificial intelligence, embedded systems, everything. For every technology, some projects freely provided here. If you are a learner of technology, you can come here, you can check projects, you can download them, and you can practice them. So many are there. Not only that, as a software developer, if you are facing any problem in your project, you can upload that issue here. Many people will give you answers. Many people will give you suggestions how to correct them and all. This is very popular among developers in software industry, code project. Here you will find projects for every technology. As I told you, from embedded system to artificial intelligence. Java, .NET, PHP, Python, web technologies, everything, every data science, everything. So here the point is, you downloaded a project. After downloading a project, when you try to run this project on your PC, it will not work directly. Why it will not work? Because the person who designed that project, he might have used some libraries. And those libraries you must have on your PC also. If you don't have those libraries on your PC, then your project cannot run successfully. Now the question here is, when you download any project or when you get any project from anybody, how do you know what libraries he used in that project? Which version of library he used? Understood my question? That means somebody given you a project. Now, he will not explain the project to you. You just downloaded it. By yourself, you have to know about that project. Then where you will get information about the project related details. Means what libraries project is using, which version library the project is using, from where you get that information. Question understood? Right? So the question is, if you got a project, from where you will know about it? Every project will have a file called package.json. Every project will have a file called package.json. This package.json is having metadata. Metadata means it contains information about your project. Like what is your project name, what license your project is having, because softwares will have various license. What license it is having, what copyrights it is having, what libraries it is using, which version of library it is using. All project related metadata is present in a file called package.json. So in real world environment, like package.json, different technologies have different files. But these days, majority of all web applications will have one file called package.json. Angular, React, Vue, Backbone, Knockout, any technology related to web, you can see this package.json. So in every project, you will have a file called package.json. What that package.json contains? It contains information about your project. So as a developer, when you got any project, you downloaded any project, first you have to go to this package.json and open and see. You have to verify what libraries they are using, which version libraries they are using. All that information is present in which file? Package.json. Because if you don't install those libraries, the same version libraries, then you cannot run the project successfully. If you developed the project, you know, but somebody else developed the project. How do we know information about it? That is actually given through a file called package.json. So in future, in any web technologies you are working, you will find a file called package.json. So as per the rules and standards of web applications, every web application must have a file called package.json. So We created a web application, but it is not having package.json. How to generate package.json? See, what we have to do is go to terminal menu and select terminal, new terminal. Terminal means it will open a command prompt like this. That means open your project location in command prompt. You have to open your project location in command prompt. This is called terminal. That means project related lot of commands we have to execute from terminal. You can open directly command prompt, but your project location. Instead of doing that, you can directly open terminal. So, and one more point here, when you open terminal, sometimes what happens is, when you open terminal, sometimes what happens here is, you see right side, there is a drop down. In the terminal right side, there is a drop down. You click on the drop down, sometimes you will get a PowerShell. Like this PowerShell will come. Don't use this PowerShell. When you open terminal and you saw suddenly PS is there, PowerShell is there, don't use it. Because PowerShell is a separate tool which you have to install separately. So don't use this PowerShell. What you have to do is go to the drop down here in the terminal, click on the drop down and select command prompt. That means now command prompt will open like this. Command prompt will open like this. Now what we have to do is, in this command prompt, we have to run a command called, you see, in the command prompt, I am running a command called, here we have to run a command called npm space init -y. npm is node package manager. Yesterday I told you that we need a package manager. So many types of package managers are present. By installing Node.js, we will get a package manager called npm. npm init y. So spaces, capitalizations, everything matters. Right? You have to give correct space, npm space init space y -y. And what is this command is, when you run this command, automatically you see initializing your web application. When I hit enter, automatically in your project a package.json will come. You will see a package.json is there. That means your web application needs a package.json. And how that package.json is generated? By using a command. As per the standards of web application, every web application needs a package.json. And we are generating that package.json. So, how to generate that package.json file? To generate the package.json file, what we have to do? After open the project location, open terminal. Open terminal. So, you can open that in terminal menu. You will find new terminal. Or you can use shortcut control plus backtick. You can use control backtick, that is shortcut. You can open new terminal. Control backtick, it is shortcut. After opening the terminal, switch to command prompt. How to switch to command prompt? I just showed you. So you have to switch to command prompt if it is using PowerShell. Understood? If it is using PowerShell, then switch to command prompt. If it is using PowerShell, you have to switch to command prompt. After switching to command prompt, run the following command. You have to run this command. What is the command? npm init -y. You have to run the command npm init y. npm init y. Now what this command is going to do, it will generate which file? Package.json. It will generate package.json. Now tell me what is package.json. If anybody asked you a question, what is package.json? What do you say? What package.json contains? So it comprises of project metadata. Understood? Project metadata means information about project. What is that information? Like version, like name, like license. Understood? Like dependencies. Dependencies means libraries. Various libraries that you are using in project. All that information is present here. Package.json contains all the information about project. So many times when people come to learn Angular like technology, even experienced people, generally when we ask, do you know what is package.json? They say, no, we haven't learned. That is not good, because every web developer should know that every web application must have a file called package.json. Compulsory, right? So in any web technology, you will find this package.json. So you can see the package.json is generated. You can observe here package.json is generated. Let's open that file and see. I will click on package.json. You can see this is there. Already in package.json, you have some details. Details like name, version, description, so many other details. Not only that, later when you are adding libraries, when you are creating more repositories in your project, this file will be updated. That means this is not final information. This is only initial information. Later, when you install new libraries, when you install new things into project, all that information will be in this file. Everything will be in a file called package.json. So you should know what is package.json and what is the purpose of package.json. That is one, right? Another important, second, package.json is ready. After package.json is ready, next run the command. You have to run another command, tsc init. So hyphen tsc init, actually init. You have to run the command tsc init. This is TypeScript initialization, tsc init. tsc is TypeScript compiler. I will explain about the compiler. Actually, you see here, you have to run one more command here, tsc init. We are running the command tsc init. So tsc init is having a hyphen actually. Yeah, so you have to use flag hyphen init. tsc hyphen init. That is the flag we have to use. Okay. What is this? tsc init is nothing but, now generally in project, when you are using a language, then one problem will come regularly. While working with language, problem will come regularly. For example, I will tell you one simple point. Suppose you are learning technologies like Java, .NET, something. Now, in Java, suppose you belong to Java or .NET, some technologies. Now, you learned that we can write a if condition, if the condition is true, then what statements? Else, if the condition is false, what statements? So, generally, you written like this. So that means as a developer, you written like this, a simple if condition. Now somebody in your same project team, another person, because project means hundreds of people are working. Your job is designing something, another person job is designing another, but all people are using same technology, same language. So another person written like this, if condition, and true, else condition, false. That means he is not using block, curly braces. Without curly braces, he written condition true, false. Both will work. Another person written like this. That means if condition, then question, not just if, simply condition, then question mark, true, colon, false. You know this, na? We call this as ternary operator, right? These are ternary operator. All three are correct. All three are working fine. Now another point is, suppose somebody have written name is equal to John. Somebody have written name is equal to John. One written in single quote, another written in double quote, and another person written in backtick John, like this. I hope you learned in JavaScript we can use backtick also. That means three different ways. All three are valid. Now one person is using double quote, another person is using single quote. This is lot of inconsistency in coding. That means in a project, if everybody writes in his own style, then lot of confusion. Because the code you written is not finished. The code you written is sent to another person. He have to continue it. Understood? That means generally in real-time projects, you will not develop entire project. Generally, sometimes we see in resume, people write, I done this project. That is a joke. What do you think of yourself? You done a project. That means you are the only person to do the project. Then you are more than a robot, genius. Right? That is completely wrong. You say, I done this project. That is completely wrong. You can never do a project. In a project, your role will be in certain area. That means you should say that I worked on this project in this role. You can't do projects. Remember, you cannot do projects. You can just mention that in that project, my role is this. That means my role is designing interface. My role is designing database. My role is writing business logic. You will not write everything. In real world projects, we have classification, right? That means the point is, you as a developer, when working with a team, then every member have to follow same standards. That means if I say double quote, everybody have to use double quote only for string. If anybody try to use his own technique, then it will give a warning. How to reduce the inconsistency in coding? How to tell the standard rules for coding? That is done by using a special file called that special file is called tsconfig.json. tsconfig.json. That means when you are using TypeScript as a language for your project, you don't want your developers to write in their own styles. You want all your developers to follow some standards. Those standards we will give in this file. And tsc-init is going to generate this file. So that means now you generated two files. One is package.json, another one is tsconfig.json. I executed this command. You see, I executed the command tsc-init. It created tsconfig.json. It created tsconfig.json. And you can observe in the project now you have two files. One is package.json, another one tsconfig.json. What package.json contains? Package.json contains information about project. What tsconfig contains? Rules about TypeScript. The TypeScript rules are defined in tsconfig. Who will follow these rules? The developers who are using TypeScript in that project. The developers who are using TypeScript in that project, those people use these rules. They have to follow these rules. If they don't follow rules, what will happen? It will verify this file. When they write logic, it will verify with the file and immediately gives a warning saying that this is to be written in single quote. You are writing in double quote. It will show warnings. So what is the purpose of tsconfig? It is used to define rules and reduce inconsistency in coding. Reduce inconsistency in coding so that developers working on a project will all follow same rules, will all follow same standards. Everybody will not have his own techniques. In software development, we don't want to see your talent and your tricks. We want certain standard procedure. You have to follow that procedure. You cannot even suggest a color. That means suppose in project requirement, they mentioned that header color must be green. You must put green. That's it. You cannot even give a suggestion that you go to your team lead and say, sir, we will put blue color. It will look beautiful. He will say that simply do what is given to you. You don't even try to give any suggestions. Nobody will accept. Just what is given in documentation, same you have to do. That is the very important part. So we have to follow certain rules and standards. So we need two files. Now you understood what is purpose, right? What is purpose of tsconfig.json? Understood? So that means it configures the rules for TypeScript in a project. It configures the rules for TypeScript in a project. Not only rules, it also defines language settings. It also defines language settings. What are language settings? One simple point I will tell you. Is TypeScript understandable to browser? Yesterday I told you, na? Is TypeScript understandable to browser? No, TypeScript is not understandable to browser. Browser can understand only JavaScript. Then we have to translate TypeScript into JavaScript. Now the question here is, which version of TypeScript we are using? Remember that? Yesterday we installed, na? Yesterday we installed and saw the version. Remember that version? 4.7. We are using TypeScript 4.7. This need to be translated into JavaScript. Which version of JavaScript you learned? Which version of JavaScript you learned? Which version of JavaScript you learned? You learned JavaScript, huh? Which version? Are you serious? Don't know. Which version of JavaScript you learned, you don't know. At least you know which version HTML you learned. HTML 5. Then which version of JavaScript you learned? JavaScript versions are ES5, ES6. These are JavaScript versions. ES7, ES8, and the latest version is ES 2022. Actually, ES means JavaScript versions are called ECMA. ECMA 2015, ECMA 2016, ECMA 2017. These are the versions. These are the versions of JavaScript. The latest version of JavaScript is 2022, ECMA 2022. ECMA ES is the version of JavaScript. JavaScript versions are ES. ES5, ES6, ES7, ES8. So generally, sometimes you will face problems in Naukri websites, right? That is the reason in Naukri websites, what is the problem you will face is when you upload resume, many people complain that, sir, I uploaded resume, my friend is getting so many calls, I am not getting, we both done same course. The problem is sometimes what happens is in your resume, you uploaded your resume, but your resume is shortlisted by a HR person, not a technical guy. That means a person who don't know about any software technology, he is going to shortlist your resume. A HR guy is going to shortlist your resume, not technical person. That means that HR don't know anything about software. He don't know anything about software. What the project team tells, that means the project manager or project lead will tell the HR that people with these skills, check their resumes and call them. Then what our HR will do, he will see the skills list. He will verify those are mentioned in the resume or not. Now what some companies will do, some companies project lead will tell them, see the people who have done ES6. That means that nothing but he says that JavaScript ES6 version, advanced who people learned, we want them. Now what you done in your resume, you mentioned JavaScript. I learned HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Now what HR thinks, because he also don't know. HR also don't know that JavaScript is called ES. Then what he will see, ES6 and here JavaScript. He thinks that he don't know, you don't know ES. And he will simply ignore your resume. But you mentioned JavaScript, but HR person don't know that JavaScript is ES. That is the reason, that is your fault. That is your fault. Person who uploaded resume, that is your fault. So better you mention both JavaScript and beside it you mention ES6. Understood? ES6, ES7, it is compulsory. Sometimes no problem. Directly they ask JavaScript, but sometimes particularly they ask JavaScript advanced version. Advanced versions are ES6. Currently companies are asking majority ES6. ES6. ES6, ES7, ES8. Our Angular is going to use ES8. Our Angular is going to use ES8 currently, latest version. Right? We are going to learn ES8, which is very recent version, latest version to learn. Companies are still not using ES8, but in future they will use. If you learnt an advanced version, handling old version is simple, nothing complicated. So which version of JavaScript currently we are going to use? ES8. ES8. So the point here is you can see several Naukri websites. Suppose Naukri website, suppose you are searching as a Java developer, right? Java full stack developer. I will specially give additionally ES6 or something like this. You can see in several requirements, in some requirements, they will mention about JavaScript, and here lot of options are there, JavaScript only. So ES6, ES5, ES6, I hope some ES modify Java ES6, something like this. Okay. And you can see here, especially they ask here architect, and you can see they say ES6 is required. In some companies, they ask directly ES6 is required. ES6. Now, you people may be confused about what is this ES6. I never heard about this. You see, ES6 and JavaScript, both. Why? Because remember, both are not different. Both are not different. So many people don't know this. Then generally they ask, when we learn, when we teach UI technologies, people come and ask like, we are learning JavaScript. Then he will ask, sir, will you teach ES6 also? Because he don't know that JavaScript is called ES6. But his intention is correct. His intention is that he's asking that will you teach advanced? JavaScript advanced is ES6. So you will get more opportunities when you make your resume more clear. Because of the problem with HR people, your resumes are not easily shortlisted. Sometimes your resumes are ignored because you haven't mentioned your skills properly suitable for their requirement. That is the reason generally people have to write both things, ES6, ES7 and all. So which version of JavaScript currently we are using? We are using ES8. So we have to translate TypeScript into JavaScript. Which version of JavaScript to be used? That we have to tell. In some companies, they will say that translate this into ES7, not 8, because their company is using ES7. Then how to do that? That means how to tell TypeScript to translate into JavaScript 7 or JavaScript 8, ES7 or ES8. How to tell? That is done by using tsconfig. That is also mentioned by using which file? tsconfig. You see that file. I open this file here, tsconfig.json. When I open this file, you can see in this file, lot of options are commented because these options we uncomment according to requirement. You see here, scroll down, you see target is ES216. That means it is converting your TypeScript into JavaScript. JavaScript version is ES216. That means ES6. That is the version. It is by default using ES6. Do you want anything else? I want ES8. That means you have to change this to 218. And save this. You have to change this. Otherwise, it will convert into JavaScript ES6. We have to set this also in the file called tsconfig. tsconfig. This is very important. Understood? So what is the purpose of package.json? Metadata. What is the purpose of tsconfig? Settings for TypeScript. Rules for TypeScript. Rules for TypeScript, settings for TypeScript are defined in a file called tsconfig. So any technology in the world which is using TypeScript as a language will have these two files. Angular, React, Java, .NET, PHP, Python, anywhere you are using TypeScript in the front end, you will have a file called tsconfig. You will have a file, right? We generated this file manually, but when you create projects, automatically this file will come. Later, when you create projects, these files are automatically generated. But today you learned how to create them manually. Manually, we create them by using two commands. What are those two commands? ts init and npm init. These are the two options. Okay. Two files are ready. I hope everybody clear. What is package.json and what is tsconfig file? Okay. Next important is, after this, already you know that as per the project standards, that means every project initially comprises of following folders. So every project initially comprises of following folders. Two folders will be there. One is public, another one is src. Two folders will be there. As per the project standards, we have two files. One is two folders, public and src. What is the purpose is nothing but public is used to store static resources. It is used to store static resources. Static resources like HTML, like text, like images, like PDF, like audio, like video, all these under the resources. That means if your project is using HTML files, text files, image files, PDF documents, audio, video files, all are kept in which folder? Public. All static resources are kept in a folder called public. They are kept in a folder called public. Right. Next important, src is nothing but it is used to store dynamic resources. It is used to store dynamic resources. Dynamic resources means CSS files, SAS files, less files. So JavaScript files, JS files, TS files, etc. All these are kept in src. CSS, SAS, less, JavaScript, TypeScript, all these files are kept in a folder called src. They are kept in the folder src. So as per the project standards, every project contains two basic folders. One is public, another one src. So public contains all static resources and src contains all dynamic resources. So we will add these two folders here. So go to your project now. In this project, you can see there is a new folder button. This is new folder. And click the new folder button and create a folder called public. And click outside. Don't select public because if you select public, another folder will be created inside public. So click outside and create another folder src. So these are the two folders we created. One is public, another one src. As per project standards, these two folders must be there. And what is the purpose of public? Static resources, src, dynamic. Unfortunately, so many times when Yep. Once again, we will continue right here. Power issue is there offline. Wait few seconds. Okay, so let's continue. Here, these two folders are there. One is public, another one SRC. Actually, whenever we are creating projects, in many of the projects, these folders and files are automatically generated. You will see so many YouTube channels and online website tutorials. They will explain this file system. That means what is public, what is SRC, what is package JSON. Unfortunately, because a software developer who calls himself as software developer, he must know the purpose of these files. Unfortunately, our developers don't idea on this. Then we have to teach them that there will be one file called package JSON. There will be a file called tsconfig, right? But this is general thing in software projects, web applications. Everywhere this file system is common. But we have to explain this file system because our developers are not good in the entire basic system. That means they don't know which file to be kept, what folder name should be. That is the reason this becomes one topic to explain that in a project there will be package JSON. In a project there will be tsconfig. In a project you will have public folder, SRC folder, what is purpose. And you will see these folders in all web applications. So now you have to get a clarity on it so that anywhere you see, you can easily understand, right? So where to keep our HTML files? In public folder. Where to keep our CSS, JavaScript, TypeScript files? SRC. This is the location where we have to keep. So as per the project standards, I hope you all people know, tell me from which file a project starts, a web application starts. Every web application starts, every website starts with one file. Do you know that file name? Every website starts by default with one file. What is that? Index.html. You learned it, na? In HTML, you learned that every website starts with a page called index.html. So as per the standards, every website should have a index.html. It's not mandatory. If we want, we can change. We can change login, we can change register, we can change home. But by default, if you don't change, by default, it will be which file? Index. How to change you will learn in next levels. As of now, as per project standards, we have to have a index page. Where to keep the index page? Go to public folder. In public folder, add a new file. Add new file. What is that file? Index.html. This is index.html. Now design this index.html. In Visual Studio Code, to design a HTML page, you can simply add an exclamation and press tab. Automatically it will generate the code. Automatically it will generate the HTML code, the default HTML code. Just put an exclamation and press tab. Automatically the HTML file is created. You have to just make changes in the title. I will do it as what? Index. And in the body section, I will put a heading. So I will say TypeScript project. Something like this I am giving. Now add a index page for your project. That is ready. This is ready. So what you have to do, the next step. So go to public folder and add a new file. What is that file? Index.html. You have to add the file index.html. Add the file index.html. Now, how to start your project? Don't try to open HTML files directly with a double click. That is completely unprofessional. Always test your projects on server only. Whether you may be working with Java, .NET, any technology, web technology, don't try to test your websites on file system. Don't try to test your websites or file system. Always test your websites in server. Because when your website goes live, it will be in the same way how it runs on server. So always use only server to test your website. Don't use any local file system. Local file system means some people have a habit like this. See, we created this project now. Open that, go to public folder, index.html is there, double click and open that file. Don't ever do this. This is not the right way of testing your websites. So always you have to test on server. That means what you have to do is, once you have created your index page, what you do is, note here, always test your project on a web server. Always test your project on a web server. So don't try to open with double click from file systems and test it. That is not the correct way. Right? Always test your project on web server. For that, what you have to do is, you have to install live server for Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code. You have to install live server for Visual Studio Code. You have to install live server for Visual Studio Code. Don't directly open in browsers and test them. So you have to use live server from Visual Studio Code. What you have to do is, open Visual Studio Code, install a live server for this Visual Studio Code. Live server, how to do is, you see there is a button here. This is called extensions. So this is actually extensions button. Extensions button will be there. You click on that extensions button and you search for an extension here called live server. Search for extension live server. You will get live server extension. This is live server. You install this extension here. I already installed, it is showing uninstall. You will get a install button, just install. That means live server will be installed for your project. Always test your projects from server only. not from file systems. So once you install live server, just what you have to do every day is simple. You can click here, see at the bottom, you can see at the bottom there is an option go live. At the bottom there is an option go live, or you simply right click in the index page and select open with live server. Open with live server. Automatically you can see it will open this in server, and you see currently it is running on server. IP address and port number will be there. Don't try to open with a double click from your PC. That means go to C drive, D drive, double click on that file and open in browser. That is not right. Always test from a server, because how your project is running on server, in the same way it runs when it becomes live. So you have to practice on live server only. So remember, if you don't install live server, you will not get this option. Open with live server will come only when you have installed live server. So once you install live server, next step what we have to do, right click on index.html and select open with live server. Open with live server. You have to do this. So open with live server. Right click on index and open with live server. We have to select this option. That means now your project is running. Now you can see your index page is working. Your index page is working, it is fine. But currently in this page we don't have any TypeScript, right? How to use TypeScript I will tell you. We just created a project and the project is ready. So what we have done, we created an empty project. In that we created two files, package.json, tsconfig. We generated two folders, public and src. We created a startup file. What is it? Index.html. It will start with this file. So your project is ready. Now how to use TypeScript in this project? I will show you that. Means how to use TypeScript in a project. So what is the process? For that, first, in order to use TypeScript, first you need to understand TypeScript architecture. In order to start using TypeScript in a project, first you should know what TypeScript contains, how it works. You should know the TypeScript architecture. Let's see the TypeScript architecture. How TypeScript works. What is the basic architecture of TypeScript? You can see actually TypeScript contains a lot of things. I will show you here. So yeah, this is the TypeScript architecture. This is TypeScript architecture. This is the TypeScript architecture. These are all the components of TypeScript. These are all the components of TypeScript. This is the basic TypeScript architecture. Now, what are these components? How they work? We have to understand how TypeScript works. You can understand by learning about this architecture. So you see at the bottom, first in the TypeScript architecture, you can see there is a core TypeScript compiler. In the TypeScript architecture, you will see a core TypeScript compiler is there. And I don't need to tell you, majority of you people know what is a compiler. What is a compiler? Compiler is a translator. No. Right? So compiler is a translator. Don't try to explain your answers. Remember, in interviews, don't explain answers. Use technical words to answer. This is one interview tip. Whenever you are attending interviews, don't try to explain your answers. Always answer using technical terms. Because freshers have an habit of explanation. Because lot of excitement will be there. Due to that, what happens, once you ask a question, he will start explaining, this will happen, sir, that will happen, sir, there it will go, there it will come. He will try to explain a story. If you start telling a story, then the interviewer will pick some more questions from that story. Understood? That means you are making your interview complicated by explaining an answer. Once you start explaining answer, you will say, like this it will happen. Then he will ask, why like that only it will happen? That means you are making your interview complicated. Always don't try to explain your answers. Use technical words. Because when you use a technical word, you answered. That means the person who is interviewing got the answer. He will not go in depth about it until or unless he wants to. He will simply skip to next question because he got the answer. But once you start telling a story about it, then he will listen to that story, and from that story he will pick up some more questions. So never explain your answers, right? Don't tell 3-4 lines of sentence as an answer. Use a technical word. What is a compiler means? You know what is a compiler? Sir, compiler will take my program. It will rotate it, return it. It will process it. No, you simply say compiler is a translator. You know what is a translator? Everybody knows, right? So compiler is a translator. So TypeScript have a translator. Now what is the role of compiler? What is the role of compiler is nothing but it checks the errors in the program and reports them. Am I right? Compiler's responsibility, checking the errors in the program and report. Right? While translating, it will find out what are the errors, and if there are any errors, it will report them. So TypeScript have a core compiler. What it is doing, what is the responsibility? It is responsible for tracking and reporting errors in program. It is responsible for tracking and reporting errors in program. It is responsible for tracking the errors and reporting the errors in program. What kind of errors? What kind of errors? It may be syntax errors. Am I right? It may be syntax errors. It may be parsing errors. Am I right? Parsing errors means converting one type to another. That means while you input a value, while you present a value, output errors may be there, input errors may be there. That means it will identify all the errors and it will report the errors. It will report the errors. So TypeScript core compiler is responsible for translating your TypeScript program. Means compiling your TypeScript program, verifying are there errors or not. Okay. Now you see, interestingly, here there is another compiler. Standalone compiler. Two compilers are there. So, and you see here, the core compiler has some files. Core TS, program TS, scanner TS, parser TS. These are responsible for doing different activities. Like, for example, just I told you, emitter TS is responsible for identifying problems in output activities. Output is managed by emitter. Input is managed by scanner. Anywhere you heard about scanner in a compiler, it is responsible for input. I hope you have seen low-level languages directly use that. That means C is a high-level language, but it supports low-level features. You see scanf option will be there. Printf, scanf. You see scanf means printf is output. Scanf is input. Why it is called scanf? Because a scanner is responsible for reading the input activities. That is the compiler. Inside compiler, so much is there. Right? These are all responsible for doing various tasks. Then why you have another compiler? There is another compiler called standalone TS compiler. What is the responsibility of this standalone compiler? Why you need two compilers? Reason is very simple. So our program is compiled successfully. After compiling program successfully, is this program understandable to browser? No, TypeScript is not understandable to browser. Then what we have to do? Translate TypeScript into, that is done by standalone compiler. Standalone compiler is a transcompiler. Transcompiler means it translates TypeScript into JavaScript if there are no problems in TypeScript. Understood? What is the responsibility? So it is responsible for translating Java TypeScript program into JavaScript. That is what actually transcompiler. That is what TSC. TSC.ts. TS is TypeScript file. TSC is TypeScript compiler. It is transcompiler. So you have two compilers. One compiler will check for problems. Another compiler will convert into JavaScript. Two compilers are present here. Okay. Next one is you will have a language service. You will have a language service. In computer programming, what is meant by service? In computer programming, what is meant by service? In computer programming, what is a service? What is meant by service and what is a service? I will tell you one simple point actually. Generally, in computer technologies, generally you are using Java, .NET or technologies, you have library. Do you know how libraries are built actually? Generally, we will have values and we have functions. Lot of values and functions will be there. What happens is, by using these values and functions, generally, we build a factory. Factory is a set of values and functions. Some set of values and functions are kept in a factory. And this factory, a set of factories are injected into service. A set of factories are injected into service. These factories are injected into service. These are injected into service. That means now you have a service. These are injected into a service. Now, technically, this service we use in our application. So, service contains set of ready-made functions and values. Every language have a language service. That means, for example, Suppose in your Java, .NET, any technology, you have a keyword if, am I right? You have switch, right? You have for. Now the question here is, it will verify whether you return if condition correctly or not, compiler. From where it will verify? Where these are all present? Language service. These are all present in a language service. When you write a program, the program compiler verifies whether the syntax you return is correct or not from its language service. That means the language service contains information about all your language. All the functions, all the values are present in a language service. That means this compiler is going to compile everything. It is going to compile everything. From where that information comes? That information comes from which location? Language service. From the language service, all that information comes. It will verify. All these compilers will use this language service. That means all the functions are present in that service, right? So what is the purpose of language service? It comprises of the library. It comprises of the library required for a language. Whatever library required for a language is defined in language service. So we have TypeScript compiler, we have standalone compiler, and we have language service. Next important, we also have another option is TS server. We also have TS server. What is the TS server? What is server means? What is the role of server? What is the role of TS server? What is server actually? What is the responsibility of server? Any technical words can you tell about server? Server. You heard about server, na? What does it does? Server is responsible for hosting. That is the key point. All our applications are hosted on server. After hosting, listening. Server use a word called listening. Listening means server started. When server is listening, it will manage request and response. Am I right? These are technical words. Server hosts your application. It starts listening. Client will make a request. It will listen to the request and send a response. That is what actually server does in simple terms. Server hosts your application. Server starts listening. Client makes a request. It will listen to that request and send a response. So server is not running. Server is listening. Many people say server running, sir. Server stopped, sir. Right? Server is not running. Server is actually listening. It listens. In programming also we write listen. Listen is a word used for server. Then server starts. Right? Starting a server is listening actually. So your TypeScript programs, where they are compiled, where they are hosted, all they are done in a server called TS server. Understood? That means I said that TypeScript programs are compiled. TypeScript programs are translated from TypeScript to JavaScript. Where all this will happen? In a TS server. That means translating the program, compiling the program, converting into JavaScript, everything is managed in a server. That means all your TypeScript programs are translated in this server. What is TS server? It is responsible for hosting, listening, request, and response. All these things will do. That means it loads your TypeScript program. TypeScript program compiles and handles request and response, and handles request and response. All these activities are done in TS server. TS server. That is one TS server. We have a TypeScript server. Now another important, we have TS server. Another important, you have a VS shim. VS shims. We have VS shims. Shims. Have you ever heard about shim? In Java, .NET like technologies, have you heard about shim? No. Actually, tell me one point. Is Java platform independent? Yes. Is .NET platform independent? Yes. .NET, Java, all are platform independent. Right? Platform independent means it can run across any operating system services. And who is responsible for making your Java .NET programs run on every operating system? Shimmers. You may not know about them, but they are a part of compiling systems. That means very rarely you will learn about them. Actually, you don't need to learn Java shim. So Java shim. You can see, so this is actually in Java and all, you have this shim concept. In Wiki, you already have this. You see, your programming languages will have shim. Computer programming have a shim. Every computer programming have a shim. Generally, why it is called shim, I will tell you. Simple point actually. I hope you know prawns, right? You know prawns, na? Prawn, right? Yeah, you know prawn, right? You know there is a shrimp also there. You know? You don't know, huh? Both look similar. But you know the difference between shrimp and a prawn. Both look the same. The concept about shrimp is, you might have never know that, but shrimp is nothing but, shrimp is gender neutral. Neither male or female. It is gender neutral. We have prawn and we have a shrimp. The word shrimp indicates platform neutral. The word shrimp indicates it is platform neutral. That means if any technology claims that I am platform independent, that is because of shim. There will be a shim library in every technology which makes your technology platform independent. You may not know about that because that is very in-depth about technology. Right? That means you don't know about, you know that Java have a JVM, right? Java virtual machine. .NET have various compiling systems actually. Now the point is, very less people know inside that what will be there. Inside compiler what it contains. How compiler works. That is not your job. That is architects. So senior software architects know about what is inside the compiler. So such people can understand this concept, right? That is the reason nothing complicated. What is shim? Shim makes your language platform neutral. Understood? Makes your language platform neutral. It makes your, it is actually shim. Shim is an API. It is an API. This API is responsible for making your language platform neutral. That is important. These are the key points of TypeScript server. Some more points are there that we will see in next session tomorrow. We will discuss that in the next session. In tomorrow's session, we will discuss about the others. Okay. Now, all this, tomorrow we will start TypeScript programs now. We will write the programs and see compiling. All these notes I will upload into Google Classroom. I will give you a classroom. Let me here just fastly create one classroom for you. Later I will change. So I will give a Google Classroom here. 14. So Angular 14. Yeah. So this is the Google Classroom link. And let me give you the classroom code. You can join this classroom code. I will, this is the classroom code. Okay. And of our online people, let me post this shared. Right. All yesterday's, today's, everything notes I will upload here. Okay. All the classroom notes will be here. You can get this. Right. This is the Google Classroom code. Okay. Here I will upload all the notes. Okay. Na? You join this, you will get all the notes. Okay. Tomorrow we'll continue.